welcome everybody. Thank you all for joining today. I see a lot of familiar faces. I think most of you might know each other already. Our new guest is Carol. Carol, would you be willing to turn on your camera and say hi to everybody?
There we go. I was lying down, but I'm sitting up now. Hi, everybody. I'm from Alberta, Canada. Let's just see if I can get this tilted a little better. Yeah. And I was looking up something on the internet, and this popped up today. So it's just a today thing. I wasn't aware of this particular group today before this, but this is great.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was wondering if this is what I was putting in. Can a Christian be can shamanism and Christianity sort of work together? That's what I was kind of wondering. And this is what, I had a few hits, and this is one of them. Not that I'm not sure why that would be, but it was.
Yeah, they can. And I don't know about who's on our call now, but I do know that several of our students and graduates of our training program have a very strong Catholic or Christian faith. And there's really no conflict unless someone feels a conflict in their heart to it, right? So shamanism is not a religion, it's a spiritual practice.
Right.
And so there's no conflict. There are a lot of people who have created a conflict with that, but that's not really for the spiritual purposes. That was more to achieve political goals in history, right? Like the Inquisition certainly murdered a lot of shamans. But that doesn't mean that, just because you're Christian doesn't mean that you were in favor of the Inquisition, right?
I don't think too many were or are now.
right, exactly. So just because something was done in the name of a certain deity or done in the name of a certain religion doesn't mean that all adherents to that religion agree to it. Just like something that might be done in the name of a nation state doesn't mean that all the population agrees with the actions taken by the government of the state.
It was just, I was sitting with people, and I thought, I sound like I'm coming out of left field when I talk to people, Christians, and I do go to church. That's fine, but I've practiced shamanism for about maybe 10 or 15 years, but I haven't done anything in the last maybe 4 years. Yeah.
Yep. Well, great. I'm glad that, so you've done journey work before, and you can journey to the drum, to the lower world and the upper world. And yeah.
Upper world, I'm not an expert at. I know I've been taught that, but I think I only did one upper world journey. All the rest are lower world.
And that's fine. It's you can go to either place. Eventually, if you choose to, study more, then you'll, learn to go to the upper world as well. They both have their different perspectives, and I don't like to talk much more about it other than to allow people to experience it directly, because otherwise it can kind of influence or prejudice what, or suggest to the person what they should experience. And I prefer for people to have that direct experience without any type of influence or suggestivity. And then after you've had numerous experiences and you begin to draw your own conclusions, then I'm happy to discuss that topic with people. So that makes sense? Yeah, great.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Well, thanks for joining us, Carol. Appreciate you joining us. And will everybody else just to say hi and introduce yourself briefly, so Carol knows who she's sitting in circle with. Jimmy, why don't you go ahead and start, since we were chatting earlier.
Hi, everybody, and hi, Julia. I'm Jimmy. I'm here in West Texas. I've been on this healer's path since I was a child, or maybe before, who knows. And I am in the advanced class, so I'm excited. Nice to meet you.
Thanks, Jimmy. Gillian?
Hi everyone, I'm Gillian and I live in the Snowy Mountains in Southern Australia. And I've been studying with a mystery school in New Zealand for probably 12 years now. They do a flower essence, fantastic flower essences too. So, you know, they have a shamanic range and healers range. So I've done sort of courses with them, advanced shamanic, alchemy. So yeah, it's sort of found a bit of a destiny and calling there, I think. And I love Scott's meetings and make an effort to be at them every 7 weeks because he speaks really beautifully. Thank you.
Thanks, Gillian. And I didn't know about the flower essences.
Oh yeah, it's central because I'm a herbalist as well, and it's central to what I do. So it's addressing the you know, you've got to truly heal. I think you really have to address your subconscious conditioning, your baggage, your hang-ups. Yeah, that because that's ultimately what brings on illness, I think. Yeah. So the shamanism is a really great way of sort of accessing, you know, where that might come from. I've also been doing some hypnosis lately, which was fantastic. You know, it really, I had a lot of sort of sadness sitting on me about COVID and you know, other things, and it really lifted it and really made my heart a lot lighter. So that's great.
Great, thanks. Yeah, it's send me a link to your flower essences.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great. It's actually a really good point. You know, as you're sharing that, something I want to bring to the group is that, and it ties into what Carol was asking earlier about Christianity and shamanism, is that shamanism is a collaborative modality. It's a collaborative modality. So we don't say like, no, you need to do it with shamanism and not the flower essence.
Yeah.
Right. That's kind of ridiculous. But, you know, people can get into this competitive state like my guru is the better guru. Right. Or, you know, it's kind of like my daddy's bigger than your daddy. My guru is, you know, more enlightened than your guru. My methodology is more powerful than your methodology. Shamanism, authentic shamanism takes all that stuff and just kind of like throws that out of the room and says, we're all going to just work together to help people heal and ourselves heal authentically. And so, you know, whether that is for a flower essence or whether that's a, you know, certain dietary change, or maybe it's, you know, you need to actually go to someone who adjusts the body manually and physically, like you broke a bone and it's kind of nice to line the bone up. So you go to like, you know, orthopedist, or you go to a chiropractor if it's not broken but it's out of joint, or you go to a massage therapist, right? We can all work together, and not every modality is appropriate for every situation, right? You don't necessarily go for the flower essence if you've got a, you know, leg fracture. You might want to go have the bone set. Then you can do the flower essence, right? So it's this idea of shamanism being the bridge between everything and, you know, working on the spirit world, and also calling in those supports in the energetic realm, like the herbal realm and the physical realm, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, thanks, Gillian.
I'll just say that, you know, if you're saying, oh, this is the only way or whatever, it's a bit egotistical, and it's not heart and soul based.
Yes, exactly.
And the word metaphysical comes to mind too, of course, for all of what we're doing.
Yeah, thank you. And Julia.
Hi, I'm Julia. I'm in Northern California, just north of San Francisco, and had the great pleasure of doing the fundamental shamanism class with Scott in Kauai last year. And then Lindsay, I saw you, we did the intermediate class together, and now I've been working with Terry on the advanced class. And I'm really especially excited about this particular topic because I felt I didn't really have any exposure to shamanism, certainly, or really any understanding of kind of spirituality from childhood, but I did have like kind of a nagging sense of being out of sync with the web of life and the lifestyle I've led being just, yeah, I felt tremendous sadness as a kid about the destruction of the rainforest and these ideas. And I'm just now understanding how to become part of the solution. And I'm really grateful
Thank you, Julia.
for that. So I'm really excited about this particular thing we're doing.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Julia. And Katie?
Hi, my name is Katie, and I am in Austin, Texas. I'm a movement teacher and movement therapist, and did the foundations and intermediate training. And it's really great to be back in this space. I've missed it tremendously. So thanks for everyone else for joining as well.
Thanks, Katie. And I did get your email, and I just haven't had a chance to reply yet, but I will. Yeah, thank you. And Lay?
Hi everybody, I'm Lee and I'm in northeastern Australia, and a bit like Jimmy, I think I've been on the healer path no, I don't think. I know I've been on the healer path for many lifetimes, and in this lifetime I'm choosing a few things such as hypnotherapy and definitely working with the unconscious mind, because it's amazing what's brought down from many generations in different formats, and letting that go, but also what we pick up from our parents. And this is probably like a lot of you, I spent a lot of time giving, and this session this morning is for me, but it's also in the same thing, it's giving as well. But it just, I just love catching up. I love what I tune into, and then I love Scott's interpretation, and just what we pick up from each other doing the same journey is magical. So thank you very much, everybody, for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Lee. Thanks for joining us. And what you say about, well, ancestral or karmic lineage, family lineage, we get so much, and we go back. It's not just from our parents or from our grandparents, it's generations and generations and generations. And one of the courses in our curriculum, which is a more advanced training, you have to have completed the intermediate training to enroll in it, is an ancestral wisdom class, wisdom of the ancestors. And we actually go back and we clear out the ancestral lines from our mother's mother, mother's father, father's father, father's mother, and then adopted lineages, and take that, and then we are able to merge that with the spirits of the land where we are, and our tribes, our tribal background. Because look, as people of European ancestry, our tribal backgrounds have probably been wiped out anywhere from 800 to 2,000 years ago, right, or 1,500 years ago, when the Romans swept through Europe, starting way back, even around 30 AD. The way they did it was they were Romanizing everybody, and that picked up around 300 and something AD, 385 AD, when Constantine came to power and signed and in the Council of Nicaea, made Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire. The reason that was done was to unify the diverse pagan tribes that had spread out that were in Europe, that were now conquered under the Roman Empire. So they didn't choose Christianity as the state religion because they thought, oh, this is the right religion of enlightenment. They chose it because here is a religion that has been made as a conglomerate of numerous pagan practices, and as well as Egyptian and Hebrew practices and Greek practices and Roman practices. And they amalgamated that with stuff that they got from the pagan tribes and the Celtics and the Norse, and they put it all together, and they said, here is a belief system that we can spread, and we can get all the different tribes that are underneath us in our political rule to agree, because we can't just garrison soldiers and keep everybody in line for eternity in all this vast, far-flung empire. And that's why you have differences in practice, you know, in England than you do in Greece, than you do in Spain, even if they're all, you know, Christian, right? You have different practices because it amalgamated and kind of consumed the traditional cultures there. So as people with European roots, we do come from shamanic cultures. It was just wiped out 1,500 years ago or more for most of us. Okay. And so we have to go back and actually clear that whole lineage all the way back in time. And when we get all the way back there and clear those lineages, then there's an amazing amount of healing that happens. So for those of you who are, you know, in the training program right now and have worked with me, that's when the timing is right for you. It's a very deep personal healing class. So, you know, you have to have the right amount of spaciousness in your life to do that. I highly recommend that if you have patterns through your, you know, that you know are family of origin patterns. It's a huge thing, and that allows us to really step in and align with the web of life in a stronger way. And so going back to that, when, you know, we talk about the apparent conflict between Christianity and shamanism that Carol was referring to at the very beginning of our meeting today, that's one of the reasons why there appears to be a conflict, is because, you know, a lot of the shamanic original tribes were Christianized against their will, and their ancestry, their bloodlines were wiped out, at least in memory. And this, you know, other bloodline, the bloodline of Jesus and Mary, was imposed upon them. That was the, you know, lineage that was that's recounted in the Bible. The Bible recounts a lineage. It's basically the Bible is a teaching of, is a genealogy. A lot of the Bible is about genealogy. Well, when the Roman Empire came through and wiped out all these tribes, they basically tried to wipe out the genealogies of these tribes and replace it with the genealogy that's in the Bible. But that's a huge thing, right? Think about that for a minute. Part of, if you go into indigenous cultures and indigenous tribes, most people can count their generations back 40, 50, 100 generations or more. I don't think many of us with European backgrounds can do that. Can anybody here on this call do that? No, we don't have that. But many people, you know, especially in Polynesia, right? They can chant it all the way back to the first canoe, the first Vaka that landed in New Zealand, right? All the way back. They can chant the whole thing. And if they can't chant it, it's written, it's documented in their, you know, the reason why it's chanted is because there wasn't, prior to the Western arrival, and at least in Hawaii, there was no written language. So it was all carried through with chant. Okay. And so for those of you who have, you know, been on these calls with me too, on the Web of Life calls, but haven't been in the fundamentals program at all, but you already have extensive journey work and spiritual experience. You know, if you do want to do something like the ancestor course with us, then just let me know, because I will make exceptions. Thank you. Yes, Gillian. Yeah, because I do it with, you know, permission too. I just need to know that people are ready to handle that level of stuff. It's not, you know what I mean? Because when we ran the course previously, and we had some people who had come through directly from the fundamentals class, it was a lot for them. So it was kind of, I just need to make sure that everybody has that solidity around them, that they can process that type of deep healing work without it being a real burden on their life or overwhelming. So yeah, anyway, that's why I have it as a prerequisite, but I make exceptions if we talk and you go, yeah, I can do that. I've been studying for X number of years. Yeah. So thank you for bringing that up, Lee. And do you have anything else you want to share? Okay, because you're muted, so I couldn't tell. And Lindsay, just say hi.
Hi everybody, I'm Lindsay. I have done the advanced course with Scott, and it's really great to see Julia again, having done the intermediate course with her. I haven't seen you for ages. I just wanted to go back to something Carol said about the discord between Christianity and shamanism, because I am obviously I like do shamanic healing now, and my children go to a Catholic school, and I find that the biggest discord between the two is that people just don't understand what shamanism is, and I think that's a big barrier that I found, like just sort of coming out of the spiritual closet and telling people what I do now. They just don't understand it, and they think that there's some negative connotations, like there's some, like you might be able to do curses and things like that. So I think yeah, that's the biggest thing I've found, where you just have to sort of explain to people that it's only ever used for good reasons, and there's no discord between the two. It's just, like Scott says, different ways of accessing healing, I guess. I also, sorry to ask questions, but the idea of the concept of hypnotism came up for me this week. I'm so glad it came up again, because that's something that I wanted to ask you about, Scott, as well, because hypnotism, like I went to something where they were talking about it, and I actually found a lot of parallels with shamanism in terms of accessing the subconscious and things like that, but they obviously don't go into the spiritual side of things. So I just wanted to get your sort of input on the key differences between the two. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind sharing.
Thanks. Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. Thanks for sharing that, and happy to. So my understanding, and I'm not a hypnotist and I've never been hypnotized, so take my understanding as it kind of like hearsay. But my understanding of it is that there's a reason I haven't been hypnotized, is because I don't want anybody else to hypnotize me. Is that what hypnotism does? It does put us in a trance state, similar to shamanic journey work. And then once we're in that trance state, the hypnotist implants suggestions that go into our limbic brain. And oh, Roberto's joining us. Awesome. And so the hypnotist will implant suggestions. And supposedly that's supposed to be for healing, right? So if you have a hypnotist that is practicing ethically, and you want to say stop smoking, you get hypnotized, and they implant a suggestion that smoking is disgusting and I don't want to do it, for example. And so there's a benefit to that in terms of how many people, if we've suffered trauma, if we've suffered negative experiences, and then we start to revisit those experiences and we can't get out of that patterning, whether it's through PTSD or some other kind of imprinting, then hypnotism can help us with that, right? So for example, if I was a kid and if I was always bullied as a kid, and then I got hypnotized, I would potentially like have that response pattern reprogrammed in my limbic system. So I was no longer feeling like I was going to get bullied in every situation and acting reactively, or reacting, in a way to that, even if it wasn't appropriate to the stimulus, right? Because a lot of times we can say, one of the definitions I like to use is of being out of balance is that if I react disproportionately to the stimulus, right? So, like, for example, you have young children. If your young child runs out into the road and there's an oncoming car, it is absolutely proportional and appropriate to run out, freak out, grab them, get them out of the way, and scream. That's totally fine, right? Get out of the road, what are you doing? Right? On the other hand, if you do that and there is no car around, it's disproportional, right? If they're just sitting in the driveway, there's no cars coming by and they're bouncing the ball, and you run out of the house and start screaming at them and say, what are you doing? And pull them inside, that's completely disproportional, okay? So that is out of balance. But when the car's coming and they're in the middle of the road, it's totally appropriate, okay? So it has to do with our stimulus response patterns. And so hypnotism is a way in which we can, if someone has a stimulus response pattern that is disproportional or comes up in inappropriate ways, hypnotism can help somebody move out of that, but it relies on the suggestion of the hypnotist. So it's limited to the practitioner and how they see the situation and their mental ability to be able to do that. Okay. And so their competence, basically. Whereas in shamanism, we go into the spirit world And it's about what the helping spirits are doing. It's not about anything that I mentally am thinking will help my client, right? So when I'm doing the journey for someone, I'm following through, I'm allowing whatever my guidance is to be. And I'm not filtering it with my mind, hopefully, saying things like, well, this can't, I'm not editing it. I'm just allowing it to come through, and I'm helping people in that way. Okay. And if I'm journeying for myself, or you're journeying for yourself, again, it's not a mental thing. It's a spirit thing. It's coming through the spirit mind. Whereas in hypnotism, the client is being put into the place of the spirit mind, and then the hypnotist is inserting something into that very open, fertile field of the spirit mind, using suggestion. Okay, that's kind of like brainwashing, but brainwashing in a positive way. Brainwashing has a negative connotation, right? But that's really what hypnotism is. It's suggesting what somebody should think. In shamanism, you're not suggesting it. Okay, and this goes back to what I was saying about with the upper world. I don't want to say my experiences until you've had your direct experiences, because when we do access the spirit mind, it is a very open, fertile field for suggestions to be implanted. And so it's very important when you're working with your clients that you're not suggestive in any way. It's certainly not in any way that doesn't facilitate healing, right? So this is why we ask for, when we're doing session work, we ask for what are the right words? What is the right guidance? What are the right things, et cetera, et cetera. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. That was great. Thank you. No, I have actually been hypnotized once before, and that was because I was having like really bad insomnia when I had my first child, and it really helped me massively at that time. But no, it's really interesting what you say about it's really to do with the competence of the practitioner, and it's not accessing the actual spiritual side of things, which is really
Right.
good to know.
Yeah, and it's the same with shamanism. It has to do with the competence of the and the ethics of the practitioner as well. Both, right? Because if I'm going to get hypnotized by someone, I want to make sure that they have good ethics.
Yeah.
Right, because I'm making myself very vulnerable, right? Very, very vulnerable. It's like going to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, right? And if they, if you're opening up and you're making yourself vulnerable emotionally, mentally in a situation with somebody, it doesn't matter how many letters they have after their name, right? They have to have the right ethics, and they have to be working in a way, and they have to have the right competence as well. So that's very important.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, Lindsay. Lee, you were going to say something?
Yep, I'd just like to add to that. I agree with what you said. And then with the hypnotherapists that are timeline therapy trained, it's similar to shamanic in that we will guide them back to the original cause, let's say anger, because we'll go through, with the type of work I do, take people through 5 or 6 different emotions to release those, but we take them back to their original, the first time they felt it, and that could be in a previous, before birth, during birth, or after birth. And so we're just guiding. So we're not, in that case, we're not implanting any ideas. We're steering you to do your own work, and which is super powerful. And yeah, I agree. Totally different rewarding for myself and for the client, and way more healing.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. I wasn't aware that was something that was done within hypnosis, but that's a really powerful way to do any form of healing work. Anytime you can get somebody back to the point of original trauma and uproot that trauma, and replace it with new, what I call agreements, that underpin the belief system, that will change their life in a positive way. And so
actually, we guide them to find their own positive learnings out of that event. So they're actually finding the positive learnings, and then that helps the emotion around the event to dissolve, evaporate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It 100% would, 100% would, right? Because, I think we're saying the same thing with slightly different language. So the example that I would do is that if I was, as a young kid, had an experience and I interpreted from that experience that nobody likes me, right? Or my mom doesn't like me because I walked in and like I was really excited to share something, but she happened to be on the phone and there was this emergency happening, and she just kind of like said, "Get out of here. You never know. You have the worst timing ever." Right. And then this emergency happened and she had to leave, and that sat in the space, and it was a family emergency, and she came back in 2 days, and she was so overwhelmed with everything else. She never took the time to come back to me as a 4-year-old and, explain that, "I'm sorry, I hurt your feelings. I didn't mean that." And the little 4-year-old there doesn't speak up about it because they're so hurt. That can sit the whole life. And that becomes a really upset adult. And then at, age 45, they go back and they see you and they get to that. And as an adult, they have the perspective of like, "Oh my God, of course, mom was just dealing with the, emergency because her sister had been run over by a car." Right? It had nothing to do with me as a 4-year-old or mom not liking me. But the 4-year-old didn't know that. And so then that's what I'm talking about, the agreements. I don't want to get in too deeply, but at that moment in time, that 4-year-old formed a belief or an agreement that, I'm not lovable, I'm not important, mom doesn't love me, whatever, right? And then in that moment, that as an adult, they actually get it and they see it, but they can't see it consciously. They have to see it in the limbic mind, right? So they see it either through hypnosis or through shamanic work, and they see it and they go, "Oh, mom was actually just dealing with the fact that her sister had been run over by a car." Of course, right? Their whole world changes in that moment. Their whole world, as you say, the emotions dissipate, and more than that, the way they interface with other people changes. So this is why we talk about, I call it commanding the second attention. You can call it anything you want to call it. Okay, it doesn't really make a difference. But their agreements about themselves, their place in the world, and the world around them changes in that moment. And when that changes, everything changes. And so what we do when we do our intermediate training is we start working through all those different agreements that we have formed about ourselves, the world, and our place within it. And we start working through dozens of those and learn the technique for doing that for ourselves, so that we do that on our own time. And we go back and essentially do that, get taken. We're not suggesting how to do it. The spirit world is taking us back, and we get shown where the origins of those are. So very, very similar to what you're talking about doing. It's wonderful. Glad to hear that modality is available, or that way of working is available through the modality of hypnotism. So if I ever want to be hypnotized, I'm going to call you. Thanks, Lee. Hi, Roberto. Thanks for joining us. If you're able to pop on and say hi, please do.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here today. Yeah, a warm greeting for everyone.
Yeah. Thanks, Roberto. Roberto's joining us from Bolivia, and he's also completed the advanced training. All right, so thanks everybody for being here today. Now we're going to move on to the topic for the day, which is dispelling negativity. And how does that affect us in terms of making a positive contribution and healing the web of life? So a lot of times, and I think a couple of people alluded to this in terms of sharing about shamanic work and it being potentially misunderstood. Lindsay, you were talking about that. We can get sort of negative feedback, as you said, oh, does that mean cursing people? Right? Like Harry Potter or something. Does that mean, so, but it also is outside of the world of shamanism too, right? Maybe your kids have an idea around how to help clean up the environment, and some adult says, oh, that's never going to work, right? Or we have an idea about making a positive contribution, and the people around us say things like, that's never going to work, it's hopeless, yada, 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 right? So how do we effectively dispel that type of negativity so that we can move forward and make a positive contribution, right? We want to disarm it, right? We want to disarm it. We don't want to harm the people, right? Because if we're they're just stuck, they're already suffering. They're stuck within their own suffering. So we don't necessarily want to harm them, but we want to disarm them. We want to disarm, not harm. We want to do it in a way such that they are able to, that negative energy is dispelled and dissipated and doesn't affect us from moving forward on our path, right? So the anchors that come in, if you have a vision, right? Like Julia, you were talking about wanting to make a positive contribution and starting to step into that role, right? You have a lot of talents, you have a lot of resources, you have a lot of good ideas, you have a lot of skills, right? But then, so what could stop you? Oh, well, maybe someone else could kind of like try to put you down for it, and then you might doubt yourself, right? Or that might happen to me or anybody else, right? I'm not just talking about, I'm just using your example, okay? And so, we don't want to let that get in our way. So how do we interface as human beings? How do we as individuals interface with that type of interaction when we do encounter someone who is negative, whether they're intentionally putting us down or just they have a negative view of the world and they themselves are depressed? And a lot of times, what I've found in my experience is that people are just trying to ground their pain. They're just trying to ground their pain through others. And so, they'll make a big show about things and make a bunch of accusations about another person. But really, it's this, they're just trying to ground their pain and suffering through somebody else. Okay, so that's the real issue that's going on. Okay, that's the real issue that's going on there. So how do we work with that? How do we deal with that as human beings? And when we can do that, when we're able to disarm the negativity, then we're able to really step forward and make the contribution we want to, because we're social animals. And if we feel that we're going to get judged, we might hesitate sometimes, especially if we're younger. So we want to disarm any negativity that's coming towards us, whatever contribution you're making, right? Whether it's towards the web of life, or maybe it's towards a healing practice, which is healing the web of life by healing other people, or maybe it's just a piece of poetry or writing or a piece of artwork that you want to put out in the world, right? Maybe it's just a painting, right? It's a real bummer if you spent hours and hours on a painting and you're stoked on it and you show it to your friend and your friend goes, eh, right? That doesn't really help, okay? But maybe they're just jealous, okay? Or maybe they just actually don't like it, but if they're not being constructive and supporting you on it, then, that's some of their stuff coming through. It's not your stuff, okay? So the journey topic is going to be, how can I disarm any negativity that is coming my way that tries to hold me back from making my contribution to the web of life or to the world? Okay, anybody have any questions about that? Anybody have anything they want to add or subtract? No? Okay. Oh, Jimmy, yeah, go ahead.
Wouldn't that be like turning the snake?
Could be.
Okay, that's what I got to find out.
Yeah, it could be. It depends on. I think each situation is different.
Okay.
Right. So yes, it could also be like the eagle taking it up to creator and returning the energy of it. So each situation is different. So for, most of you guys on the call have done those journeys with me about turning the snake around, and the eagle journey in the intermediate training. So in general, that turning the snake around is when that's consciously directed negativity, where someone's actually really trying to, it's personal, and they're really coming at you. Strong stuff. Whereas the eagle is more, I tend to use that more for when it's unintentional negativity. So yes, but here I'm talking about more of a general thing too, like as far as how do I do that, as far, whether you're stepping into more of your role as a healer, or you're launching some other project. If there's any kind of negativity that's coming your way, how do we disarm that and still move forward with our mission in life? Okay, great. So I'm going to drum. Everybody knows how to journey. Everyone knows what to do. And then we'll come back and share. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Thank you for journeying with me. Who'd like to share first about what they were shown? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh. Mine's pretty brief. As per normal, then not. I don't go to a very verbose world. So it was basically feeling negativity is all in our head and our thinking, and to move from there down to our heart area, feel that love in there and feel it grow, and then it actually becomes like a shield. It's like a shield of light, but it's also that vibrating love. That's it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. And, you know, understanding, at least how I've been shown that, is that it's love for what we're doing, not necessarily love for the negativity that's being sent to us. Right? So this isn't a ticket to enable others to abuse us. Okay? It's very important to make that distinction because, you know, some of those teachings about love have unfortunately been misinterpreted to enable abuse, right? Oh, just love them. They don't know what they're doing. Well, no, that's not. Love yourself. Love the world. Love the web of life and model the behavior. Have understanding and compassion, but don't allow that negativity. Don't allow predators to feed on you. So it's important when we discuss that and that radiating out, that can easily be misinterpreted to, oh, just love the person that, you know, if I just love them more, they'll stop abusing me. Well, it doesn't actually work that way. So it's very important that we make that you know, loving ourselves, loving the world around us, and then being a model as well of that. So thank you, Lee.
Yeah, thank you for expanding on that, because yes, it was what I was feeling was that self-love radiating out, and when you're full of self-love, you're very comfortable at putting up the boundaries and expecting people to treat you appropriately and interact lovingly as well.
Yes, that's very well said. So you may not be visiting a verbose world, but you have good words when you come back. Yeah, thank you. Okay, who'd like to share next? Go ahead, Roberto.
Thank you. So in the journey, I was sitting on the edge of a cliff, and I was just sitting there, sort of meditating, and I had this dome of light around me, and I saw like these sort of bursts of light hitting around me, and I was there just observing that, and they were not, nothing was getting to me. I was just there, but at some point it turned annoying, even though it was not actually hitting me. And I'm like, at some point, does this ever stop? Like, is this thing that I'm receiving, this sort of like negativity here, there, about the different things, does it ever stop? And it wasn't stopping. And then at some point I just sort of shifted my focus from within, where I was sort of in a meditating position, and I looked around and I saw these bursts of light then bouncing back and going back to the origin where they were created, and where they came from. And then I saw that the original point where they were being created then was stopping, throwing them back. And I was giving the response that only if the thing that created it understood the what it was being created, what was being created, would it ever stop if it was something that was obviously not nice? And then a lot of questions started to rise up, sort of like the proportionality of it. But what if, like, I really don't know if the intention was an ill intention, a bad intention, if it was proportional in terms of the strength, and because it's not the same as if, like, say, if someone insults me and then they get hit back with something else that is stronger, and all these thought patterns started to show up there. And then I received the guidance that it was not for me to know, and I did not need to know in every single occasion when I was receiving any type of negativity exactly what was going on with that, and that my only job with that was just to return whatever came from wherever came, in the same way, shape, and manner that it came to me, and that was not my job. And so that happened, and after that, I was also shown that obviously there are different levels of empathy with people that we constantly deal with, and some people truly are not aware, whether consciously or unconsciously, of what they're doing and creating. And until there's a point in which they can truly feel what is being created, whether that be in a very positive manner or negative manner, will they understand what they're doing. So it was also a way for people to be able to have the opportunity to grow and gain awareness. Sorry. So that was my journey.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's really beautiful. So, absolutely, it's not our job necessarily. It's not our job to need to understand whether that person is conscious of their negativity or if it's just unconscious projection. That's their job to figure it out. And that's where the healthy boundary as a practitioner lies, right? Because it you can't save everybody. They have to want to learn. They have to want to be aware, right? So if I come to you and I say, "Hey, I have a problem, can you help me?" That's very different than saying, projecting my problem onto you because I'm angry, right?
Mm.
It's like if I come to you and I say, "Hey, Roberto, can you help me? I have an anger problem," and I get really angry, and I'm sorry if I've ever taken that out on you, but I need help. That's very different than me coming and blaming you for me feeling angry. Those are two totally separate things, right? And it's not really your job until that person can come to you and say, "Hey, I need help." It's not your job until that point in time to discern it. It's just, this is not mine. This doesn't belong to me. So it kind of ties in to what we were talking about previously in terms of anchoring the light in the heart and having self-love and having that boundary around. And then that's just not, it doesn't belong to me. And then the other part of what you said is also really, really right on about people not knowing necessarily the effects of their actions, right? I can look back in my life at when I was in my teens and 20s, how I behaved and what I did, and it was unconscious. Like, if you were to say to me, "Hey, Scott, do you care about the earth?" Yeah, absolutely I did. Do you care about making a positive difference? Yes. But did I act on it? Not really. Yeah, I was too self-absorbed with, whatever a teenage boy is self-absorbed with, right? So it was a concept, but there was no follow through. Um, and my first job was not a job about making a positive impact, because at that point in my life, I carried an agreement or multiple agreements that I had to choose between doing something to help the earth and surviving and making a living. And I thought that in order to, make a living and earn money, I had to do something that was destructive to the earth. That's what I thought at that point. Now I know better. And no wonder I hated my jobs. at that point, right? No wonder I was never, like I was technically good at them, but I was miserable and I always quit them because I didn't like what I was doing because it was conflicting with whatever was really, true to my heart. But at that point, I was so locked into that dynamic, or that catch-22 of thinking I have to do this thing that I hate and is destructive to the planet in order to survive, right? I have to do something like that because that's what everybody around me was doing, right? And then I couldn't do it. Like my heart couldn't take it, so I just quit. I had no idea what I was going to do until I ran out of money, and then I got another job again, and then I quit. And then eventually, it came to me like, well, actually, I can help people. I can actually help people and establish a way of getting paid and having it be in right relationship and survive, but also make a positive contribution to the work, not just survive, but thrive and help people. So yeah, it's a lot about that. What you're talking about is really right on. Very, 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 very important. About a lot of times people don't understand what they're doing and the effect of what they're doing, right? They're just absorbed in their own little world about, how am I going to pay this month's rent or whatever that might be, and they don't see the suffering and the damage that's being caused through their actions a lot of times. So yeah, that there is a way, if possible, there are times where if we can present it in a certain way, it can bring people to another level of awareness if they're open to receiving that, right? But it has to be gentle. It can't come from a place of judgment of that person, because we've all been there. We've all been ignorant ourselves. Maybe not in that area specifically, but in different areas over time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One more thing I wanted to share also that I saw is that we always know, like in our heart, but like you said, we sometimes get into our mind and just act out of pure logic, and so that gets blown out of the way, and yeah, but there's some level of conscious awareness though of the actions that we're taking also.
Yes. Yes. Hopefully there's some level of conscious awareness. Hopefully. I think there's varying levels of conscious awareness, right? Because sometimes we do things out of habit, right? I mean, are you really mindful every time you put the keys in the car and turn the ignition?
Yeah.
Not really. I'm not. I'll speak for myself. I'm not. Right. So am I mindful every time I go to the grocery store and buy something? Am I mindful that whatever I'm purchasing has been harvested in a, fair trade, sustainable harvest method? Or do sometimes I just grab something off the shelf that, and consume something that maybe was, grown where they clear cut rainforest to plant palm trees for palm oil? You know what I mean? Like maybe I do that sometimes. I'm not, maybe I'm busy and I'm just grabbing a snack and I didn't read the ingredients through, and so all these things have ripples through the web. I do my best, right? I try to only buy things that are sustainably harvested. I try to never use toxic chemicals anywhere in my home, right? But every once in a while we might have to get bleach out to get that mold off the, we live in Hawaii. Right? And it's like, do you want to live with a mold, or do you want to live, or do you want to put the bleach on the thing, right? Eventually, sometimes we have to make those choices, and but we try to make them consciously. Whereas a lot, I pull my weeds with my hand, or like I don't. You've been to my house, my yard isn't exactly like the most manicured. It's more permaculture style, and we like that. It's organic. It's very, you're in kind of get the sense of the rainforest here and the ability to, like and the growing and the permaculture style here. My neighbor across the street, they just go out with the Roundup and they just spray the Roundup to get the weeds out of their lawn. It's like that is not good for and most, I'd say 75% of the people who live on this island do the same thing. Right? So it's like where there are varying levels of consciousness. And I can guarantee you when they're doing that, they're not thinking about how that might affect the water table or their children or their grandchildren. I can guarantee you they're not thinking about that. They don't want to think about it. They just want to get that ugly weed off their perfect lawn. Right? So are they conscious? So it's a very important issue actually about conscious or consciousness, because I believe that we're only going to be able to shift humanity's relationship with the web of life by shifting humanity's consciousness, right? So when I can have that discussion in a way with my neighbor who, and explain like, hey, you know, I know it's more convenient to get the little squirter thing out and then to pull it out with your fingers, especially because she's elderly, you know, in her 80s. But I just want you to understand that when you're doing that, you know, and the rain comes, it washes it into the soil, and we have volcanic soil, and it percolates down into the you know, water table, and then people drink that, and it causes cancer. And you know, your children, when they have children, their children might be infertile because it affects that type of reproductive organs in humans. You know, we think about that, right? Well, you know, so far in 20 years of living here, or 18 years of living here, I haven't been able to, there hasn't been an opening to have that conversation with my neighbor. Okay. But, you know, when my neighbor's consciousness shifts, or hope, you know, if it shifts, that's when things shift. When that becomes the, you know, primary awareness, right? There's that 100th monkey type of thing. When the majority of people begin to think in that way of sustainability, that's when we can make a difference. When we're just a minority, and a small minority, saying, hey, you know, we got to think about the web of life, we got to take action. It's very hard to take action when the majority is taking counteraction. I mean, it still makes a difference, don't get me wrong. We still want to, you know, we still pick up plastic off the beach or whatever, right? But if the majority is taking counteraction, it makes it a lot harder. So if we can shift the consciousness in the majority, then the majority is taking positive action. And one of the ways in which I've seen that here on our little island is that it is now common. Almost every time I go to the beach, I see people picking up marine debris, the plastics and ropes and things like that. Whereas 5-8 years ago, people weren't doing that. They were just leaving it. There were a few organized beach cleanups, but that was mainly in the tourist areas to make it look good for the tourists, right? For vacation. But now there's a lot more consciousness of not even organized beach cleanups. There's still those that are going on through Surfrider and other foundations, but just random people. Just they go, you know, there's one lady, she was like, yeah, we used to walk down the beach and pick up shells. Now we walk down the beach with our bag and pick up plastic, right? It's like, you know, we see it all the time. We see people picking up plastic, taking it off the beach, stuff that was thrown overboard by the boats or got washed over from the tsunami years ago. Yeah. So anyway, that's a really important thing about that shift in consciousness. So thanks, Roberta. You have anything else you want to add, or no? Who'd like to go next? Julia.
I go, sure. My internet connection's not good, so I hope you can hear me. But I had an important realization.
I can't hear you. I just hear realize, and that's it.
Because I asked about some I've ever faced, and the answer I got was kind of obvious, but somehow it was, you know, sort of revelatory to me, which was that there isn't really any internal criticism. The internal criticism that I fear really has to do with reactions and the acceptance of others. Internally, like in my core, I know I'm supported. I know what I have to say matters. I'm solid. I'm good. It's the, you know, internal criticism really is a fear of the external. So that was an important kind of understanding for me. And the specific thing I'm wanting to do I've been working on a collection of poetry, and I got some sort of guidance on criticism related to that, and how, thoughts on how, or ideas on how to maybe put it out there in a way that was different than what I thought. I thought I would do a sort of a book collection, but maybe that's not the best way. I had an image of a butterfly pollinating all these flowers, like disseminating the work in a different way than a book. And I wrote down more specific things to me that I don't need to, go into for everybody, but it was really helpful and empowering, and really enjoyed that journey.
Thanks, Julia.
Thank you.
You just kind of froze, but I think you said everything, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I know I was freezing a bunch. My internet is saying it's unstable. So I don't know how much of that anybody caught, but it was good.
I think we caught the gist of it.
Okay.
The gist of it that I heard was that you have a poetry that there really is an internal criticism. It's just you're afraid of what other people on the outside
Correct.
might think, and that you got guidance that maybe the way that you're going to get your poetry out is going to be different than you originally thought.
Yeah.
But I would journey again on what the butterfly pollinating different flowers
Mhm.
means. If maybe you have already, because you said that there was some stuff that was personal to you, but get that
Yeah.
nice clarity on what that image is. What is it? Why butterfly did you show me pollinating all these different flowers? Like,
I also had in the manta ray, like I've had manta ray visit a few times, and I don't know, I haven't followed up on that. But manta ray was definitely a part of it too.
yeah. Okay, well, you got those winged animals, the butterfly and the manta ray. Thank you, Julia.
Thanks.
Okay, who'd like to go next?
And I will, if that's okay. I've actually
Sure.
got to leave at 7:30 as I have an appointment with my kids. But I actually got a lot of information come through, and similar to what other people have said. But the first thing that came through for me was to disarm with positivity. So someone can't fight you if they're not fighting back. And I kind of got taken back to an incident with my husband this week, where I was actually very controlled, and I stayed centered. I listened to what he had to say. I let him get angry, but you don't engage in that situation like that. You cannot fight. Someone can't fight with you if you're not fighting back with them. And so that was something that's kind of came back to me. The other thing that came through was to ask questions, similar to what Roberto was saying, is that 9 times out of 10, the issue is their problem, not your problem. And listen to what they have to say, ask questions, find out what the real source of the problem is, because it's often not you, it's them. The other thing that came through was to protect yourself. So something that Scott shared with me early on in my journey was the circle of fire, or you can use a bubble of light. The negativity that's sent towards you is often only an issue if we let it affect us and we can take it on. So protect yourself. Don't let that negativity, don't take it on, and don't let it affect you. Just let it bounce off this circle of protection around you. I also got a image of my children, and I was told to sort of hug them. They can't stay angry at you if you can't hug them and you diffuse the energy, the negativity. So just give them a cuddle and start talking to them. And the final thing that came through was just to walk away. If you're not getting anywhere with the situation and you're feeling that things are starting to affect you, then just walk away, and that's okay too.
Yeah, that's self-love
Mm.
right there. Walking away is self-love. I'm not going to tolerate this. I'm not going to subject myself to abuse. I'm going to walk away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not going to engage. So, I will refine the languaging a little bit, what you said about somebody can't fight with you if you don't fight back. It's actually someone can't fight with you if you don't allow them to engage with your center, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're always going to they're trying to engage, right? But when they get into your center is when they can push you off balance. right? So you can engage, but you own your center and you own their center, right? So what that means is that it's a combination of those things that you said, right? Which is I'm listening to what he's saying, he or she is saying. I'm understanding that this is their problem, not my problem, right? I'm allowing the through the perception of where they're coming from, I can see that they're off center, right? Kind of like this idea about consciousness and what are they aware of or what are they not aware of, similar to what Roberto was saying. And I know it's not mine, so I'm staying in my center. I'm anchoring my light. I'm bringing the love into my heart and out of my mind, right? That's all about staying in your center and keeping your boundary, but at the same time, knowing where that other person's center is so you don't allow them to get into your center. And then if you need to, yeah, you walk away because they're starting to get close to your center. So it's like, no, I'm disengaging. So there is a time to disengage if somebody continues to push at you, right? And we're all different. Like we all have different trigger points. We're all in different points of the journey. We all have the things that get us really mad, right? Or sad. There are, you know, look, it's a journey. We're going to keep uprooting the things that imbalance us, keep uprooting the things that are painful and getting to the core of those, you know, original traumas. But while we're on the journey, don't expect that you're going to be the Buddha. Don't expect to be Mother Teresa. It's not who you are. Okay, you're you, and you're beautiful just exactly as you are, and you're perfect as you are. And you have to know when it's time to say, hey, me and my perfect/imperfect self that I embrace, I'm getting really pissed off right now, and I'm going to walk away before I say something dumb. And that escalates the situation that I don't want to escalate. That's okay. You know, I say dumb stuff. Just ask my wife. Ask my daughter. She'll vouch. They'll vouch that I say dumb things. Okay? And so, you know, I try not to say dumb things, but I still say them. Right? And when I catch myself saying them or hopefully before I say them, when I catch myself about to say them, I'm like, I've got to walk away. I'm about to say something stupid. I'm really angry. I'm going to say something dumb and it's going to hurt your feelings. So I'm going to walk away right now. Please let me walk away. And I just walk out the door. And they just kind of stand there and they look at me and I'm like, hi. And then I come back. It takes me a few minutes to calm down. Depends on how upset, you know, frazzled I got. And then I can come back to my center. It's okay. You know, we all lose our balance sometimes. That's okay. It's like, how do we come back to balance? How do we come back to our balance? That's the most important thing. So, great. Thank you, Lindsay.
No, you're welcome. No, just to add to that, centering yourself did come up in the journey as well. And it's like, that's when we make the good decisions, is when we're centered and balanced. Like you say, it's like you can't make those right choices in the moment if you're not balanced. So yeah, like you say, walking away sometimes is the best option.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
I'm going to have to go. Thank you so much for that. I can't wait to hear everyone else's responses on the video. Take care, and I will see you all soon.
Thanks, Lindsay. Enjoy your day.
Bye.
Good morning.
You too. Bye.
Thanks for getting up early.
Always a pleasure.
Okay, who'd like to go next? Go ahead, Gillian.
Scott, you actually said a lot of what I believe about you know, the consciousness and raising the consciousness and of the world and and that's sort of I feel that is the job of light workers and shamans and alchemists and everything, is our great work. So yeah, because there is so much to be done on that level, and I feel as my teacher says, we're in the battle of the ages. You know, in the Aquarian age, the ability to manifest is really almost instant at times. So your power of your thought and is really powerful, and in a way you can only work on yourself to help everyone, because we're moving into the age of non-separation and oneness, or evolving into realizing that is what is in truth. So you need to sort of be the energy you wish to attract. But we're all, like you just said, we're all human. We're also divine, so that we need to sort of just focus on aligning with that divine and shining your heart light into the oneness of the web of life, the world, and humanity, to bit by bit raise the consciousness of the world. And then, you know, but on everyone's also alluded to everything that I came up with. The perceived reality is what makes people make negative comments. So their perception of what's going on, or being real, is a really good way to put it, you know, and that's just that is like just accepting things that humans do, and you know, and the media is really good at sort of working that one, like war, conflict, separation, greed, negative thought patterns and creations, and saying, oh, that's reality. And like you said at the beginning, the known ground, the state of the world, the projection of emotion. So, you know, it's as if we're practitioners, we have to be very clever at, like you said about the lady across the road, about finding that spot where you can sort of just switch on a light, or a light bulb moment. Oh yeah, maybe this isn't a good thing. And even they can take that as negative, you know. Oh, but I'm just cleaning up my yard.
Mind your own business. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And
right, absolutely.
But it has to be done gently and bit by bit and every day, and aligning with what divine consciousness really, or divine, you know, what wants us to evolve into, I suppose. And the oneness of everything we do affects that web of life. That's what I see in journeys all the time, is that it's like, there's a great picture once, all these grandmothers with knitting the web of life, and it's the like shining the light into from your heart, yet not your mind. I think Roberto alluded to that. Have to get out of the mind. And the same with your, you know, when your first job, you know, your first jobs.
Exactly.
And I was the same. I sort of, I look back at that now and go, you were so self-absorbed.
That's right.
And yeah, you wanted.
And I didn't even know.
I've been an activist too, but I sort of, it took me a while to realize how I could operate with that, and not sort of, yeah, even the job that I've had the last 22 years has changed so much in national parks. You know, it's changed so much. It's almost like, yeah, they're really into chemicals. I sort of go, oh man. Anyway, that's what I came up with, and I hope it just aligns with everything you said, really.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really one thing I'll throw out there on that line is you know, because you brought up my neighbor again, is we want to also think about how we can make the most impact with our time and energy available, because everything does have concentric rings and concentric circles, but would it really you know, make a positive impact if I'm spending hours trying to educate my neighbor who doesn't want to hear it, versus you know, an hour doing that versus an hour doing this? What's making a bigger impact in the world, right? So if I'm, you know, wanting to be strategic in making sure that my actions are effective, then I don't necessarily need to preach into resistance, right? I don't need to try and you know, like, make people change if they don't want to change. I just allow them to be, and find the people who want help, and then help to amplify that for them, help to speed up their process. So, you know, it's like the gifted healer who doesn't go into a healing practice but tries to heal all his friends and relatives. Doesn't really go very well. I'm sure you guys have all tried that at some point in your life.
Yep.
Someone you care about, who you really want them to heal, and you try to heal them and get them to heal, and I bet nobody said that worked out well, right?
No, didn't.
Didn't work out well. Guess what? I had the same experience. So you let them be, and then something magical happens when you're okay with that. These people who show up who actually want to do the work.
Your vibe attracts your tribe.
That's right. And then they show up and then they're like, hey, can you teach me this? What, you want to do this? I've been trying to tell my mom about this for years. Just, you know what I mean? I've been trying to tell somebody, but you actually want to? Great. Let me share with you. Right? So that's kind of how it, will play out. So it's the same in everything, right? If you have these great, permaculture farming techniques, you might not get very far if you're trying to, teach them to the, pesticide salesman. He probably didn't want to hear about it. Okay, but there are people who are interested in learning, and all of a sudden, if you offer workshops, people are going to show up on your farm to learn about permaculture farming techniques. And, that's a big thing here on Kauai. There's a lot of that. And so, you got to find the right people and just put it out. It's kind of all very similar. Everything that we've been shown so far that I've heard is related. It's been in a different way, but similar to what Lee shared in the very beginning about bringing that light down into the heart and spreading it out in the world, right? That's what you're doing. You're just offering this out in the world, and then it magnetizes in those types of positive experiences, and it also repels the negativity.
And with the right intent, you just work in the spiritual realm rather than the physical too. I often feel that's more effective.
Yeah, that's
Very
right.
much more effective.
It is. It's a lot. Well, they're both. Yeah, it's the root cause. It's the initial seed. It's the beginning that we plant. Right. It's the incubation period that comes before planting. So there's actually a winter time. Right before you get into springtime, we have winter time, and in that winter time, things are incubating. You've piled up all your compost, the things that you cut off in the fall, and you've piled it up, and now that's fertilizing the ground. So when it does come time to plant the seeds, you can plant the seeds. Great.
Nice analogy. Thanks.
Thank you, Jimmy. You're going to share.
Yeah, it's basically everybody said pretty much what I got also. I went to the upper world and I talked to a spirit teacher, and he was telling me that basically there's like different levels of this negativity from people, and it depends on where it's coming from, whether it's coming from a child or an adult or a family member or a stranger who hates you just for your beliefs or your skin color or whatever. So there's different levels on how to deal with each one of those, from basically just walking away, not engaging with what he said, people are full of madness. It's people are there, and it's some of the madness is just taught madness, learned madness, coming from their lives, their experiences, and then they're trying to poo-poo your beliefs, because you're not like them, and they don't understand you, and they want to, what did he say? Basically, they're just people that are just sick in spirit, and they're trying to deal with that by putting you down, and you just gotta stay strong. Basically, just stay strong in your beliefs and not worry about them. And then after I was done with the journey, and I was sitting here and I was writing my stuff out, and then something just came back to my mind. Whenever I would talk to my mom and kind of get on her nerves a little bit for fun, and she'd say something, and I'd go, "Mom, back then I was too young to give a shit what people thought of me. Now I'm too old to give a shit what people think of me." So I kind of like, kind of stay there in that mindset.
That's beautiful.
That was kind of like poking at my mom a little bit, but in a fun way.
I'm gonna remember that one. That's really great. Thank you, Jimmy, for sharing that. I'm gonna plagiarize your line at some point.
That's cool.
In my life.
TM.
Yeah, exactly. I was too young to give a shit. Now I'm too old to give a shit. It's great. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, Carol or Katie, who wants to follow that up? Katie, go ahead.
Is there's someone mowing outside? Is it? Oh, can you still hear me? Okay.
We don't hear the mower. We just
Oh,
hear
great,
you.
perfect. So my journey began with a big alligator, super, super thick skin, big clenching teeth. And I laid on top of him and felt how thick the skin was. And it was showing that that was maybe a way that I could do with survival, that I would act in that way, thick skin, fighting back when negativity came. And then saw what so many others saw, which was this ball of light, this purity of being that had a center point that radiated out. And it was almost immune to negativity, it didn't attach to it. It seemed to waft right through it. It was a really blissful way of being. And then I interacted with this being, this sort of trickster being that comes around every once in a while. And he had a bag, and it was like a Mary Poppins bag it was very small, but it had tons of things in it. And he was like this essence of humor. So negativity would fly at him, and he'd pull out of his bag and he'd throw out like these mirrors. And then he'd kind of laugh in the background a little bit. And he had all these funny tools sort of reflecting. And then at the end, the negative, they was getting really upset and really frustrated. And he, all of a sudden whoosh, and he had this pink bunny suit with like floppy ears going each direction. And then he just held open his arms like for a big hug. And it showed me to remember that humor is an important aspect to have when in dealing with certain negative situations. And then everything went black, and it was like the sun was rising and there was a beautiful buffalo, and the buffalo was just standing and chewing. And as the sun started to come up, it started to turn white, and it made it about halfway, and then it stayed there, and it seemed to represent equanimity and a strong stance. And there was a strength like the alligator, yet there was this peaceful quality about it.
Beautiful. Thank you, Katie. Thank you. Yeah, it's amazing to me how many of the journeys are pointing to the same thing with different symbolism, right? And so we want to keep that in mind, that different people see things in different ways in the spirit world. And so when, especially now, we didn't all grow up in the same clan group. So we have different symbolic languages, right? If we'd all grown up together in the same tribe, in the same clan, we would have everything in that we saw in the spirit world would have a coherent, a similar meaning between all of us. But because we have different symbolic languages, it will be represented to us in different ways. And so this is why I love these group journeys, is because we get to see how it all points to one cohesive global understanding, but we're each getting different aspects, different angles, different perspectives. It's like we're sitting around in the circle, and there's an object in the middle of the circle, and we're each describing what we see from our perspective. But we might be, if we're sitting on different sides of the circle, we're going to see different things. Like I might see the front of someone, and you might see the back of them, and someone else will see their side, right? And so when we put it all together, we get a complete picture, and it's wonderful to see how that picture continues to grow and come into more completeness as everybody shares. Thank you, Katie. Carol, would you like to share with us?
I wasn't quite prepared to do a journey. So anyway, I had to do a few things before I even got started. I'm a visual person. My journeys are always very visual, but this doesn't mean anything to me. All I saw was claws hanging onto a claws of a big bird, hanging onto a branch, black feathers with teal tips. That was all I got. I got a lot out of what everybody said here, particularly from, stepping away from an issue, which I've had to do, because usually I can be pretty confrontational. If and I stepped away because I thought I'm going to say something I really shouldn't say, and I did, and I was leading a music group, and I just lost it. I just said, I'm just going crazy here. Just stop talking. And I didn't go any further than that. And I left the group for quite a while. And I did go back, and I decided to leave the leadership to someone else. So I think I'm quite satisfied with how I handled that one. But anyway, it's nice to be talking shamanism again. I appreciate all that you're saying. It just clicks with me so well. It's the thing that fits with me the best, most of any of my belief systems that I follow. And I think that's it.
Great. Well, thanks, Carol, for sharing that. When you have time and you're more prepared to journey again, you might want to
Yeah,
go
I
back.
didn't.
You might want
I
to go
didn't know
back.
that.
You didn't know we were going to be journeying today. Yeah. You might want to go back and check what is that, and check what is that bird and what was the meaning, and why was I looking from below up at the talons, grabbing onto the branch, and what is that black bird with the teal feathers at the tail tips of the feathers, and what was the message that that bird had for me, for your own personal growth. And
Mhm.
you're always welcome to email me, shamanicspiritmedicine@gmail.com. Feel free to reach out if anything comes out. Feel free if you glad to come back and join our circle again. It's nice to have you in our circle.
Thank you.
And if we have other courses and things that you're welcome to join, by all means. Always love to have people in our groups that are interested in the path and making a positive contribution to the web of life. And I really appreciate everybody taking the time out to be here today. Really, thank you. It was such a beautiful circle today. I really appreciate that. Really appreciate everybody's participation. And I look forward to seeing everybody the next time. So, thank you all.